What would the outcome of Tokyo Colony number 1 have been if Itadori and Megumi ended up taking completely different paths? The way that both Yuji and Megumi were set up to place their trust in the first friendly person they met, they could have easily ended up in entirely opposite situations. With the teleportation of the Culling game entrance being purely random, what if all the battles we've seen so far completely switched up, and all the roles were swapped? This is the Culling game reversed. Fushiguro Megumi versus Higuruma Hiromi. So, in the original timeline, after defeating both the sorcerers that attempted to pick him off as he entered the fray, Yuji met up with Rin Amai and was able to discover Higuruma's location at the theater through their previous relationship. For the sake of time, we'll skip ahead and just say after taking out a player or two on his way over, Megumi would eventually stumble upon the theater that Higuruma was holed up in. Not really exerting much of his energy to get to this point, Fushiguro would be well at 100% before walking into the main auditorium where he'd interrupt Higuruma's bath same as Yuji did. And right away, the interaction the two share would veer in a completely different direction. Originally, Yuji's more confident, inquisitive nature drives him to immediately question Higuruma's intentions when taking a full suited bath, while Megumi tends to remain more reserved and keeps his thoughts to himself. Deducing that his target was definitely up to something weird, Higuruma would have to question Megumi's arrival before the quiet teen even said a word to him. On Fushiguro's original route, the demeanor he holds in the Culling game is vastly different from how he holds himself normally. Much more ruthless, and taking on a much more hands-on approach in terms of making actions first and asking questions later. Megumi's intention with any of the Culling game players he faces certainly isn't to befriend them. Probably going to be coming off as hostile from the very start. Higuruma isn't going to be as open and talkative as he was to Yuji, purely from Megumi's standoffish nature. When questioned on who he was, Megumi most likely wouldn't even dignify Higuruma with a response, instead answering his question with basically his own question. Are you Higuruma Hiromi? The lawyer, currently in a midlife crisis, only amplified by the growing chaos of the Culling game, and just only recently awakening to his sorcerer powers, Higuruma would probably keep up his playful persona for the first encounter, before recognizing that Fushiguro has murderous intent. With the conversation getting nowhere, Fushiguro being too aggressive in his interrogation, and Higuruma, a man of law and debate, not giving a single inch to hang himself with, seeing no other choice, Megumi would probably take in enough context clues to figure out this was his target. And if not, well, as we saw in his original timeline, he's not exactly afraid to gain points the old-fashioned way. To close the distance, Nue would be the perfect long-range Shikigami to spring forth and launch itself directly into the bathtub. Coating itself in electric shock, the last place Higuruma would have wanted to be for this attack would have been in water. Even if Higuruma was able to react, the electric shock on his wet clothes do not bode well. Being able to take a full wallop from Yuji Itadori to the solar plexus, Higuruma would be more than likely able to survive a direct hit from charged up Nue. Steadying himself and summoning his own Shikigami and gavel, Fushiguro would watch his opponent closely, waiting for a move in order to properly counter. However, by doing exactly this, Megumi's calculating mind is truly what would fail him in this battle, as although he doesn't know it yet, this is his best possible opportunity to land a win condition. If Megumi had just begun an onslaught with more Shikigami, or even just continued attacking with Nue to keep Higuruma on the defensive, he could have avoided a large amount of this confrontation. Alas, as character traits are, Megumi's carefulness is a flaw just as much as it is a positive. Waiting long enough for Higuruma to gather up cursed energy and get within range, the lawyer would waste no time. Similar to his battle with Itadori, calling upon his domain expansion. Shocked, the innate barrier would instantly take form around Fushiguro, and with only one split second to make a decision, he can either be taken victim of deadly sentencing right from the start, or, if able to react quick enough, it may actually be possible for Fushiguro to respond with his own domain, even if just enough time to delay the barrier's completion and nullify the innate ability. In this specific scenario, now caught in a tug of war with Higuruma's territory, the two sorcerers would be locked in a battle of will. With both Fushiguro and Higuruma having only unlocked their domains a short while ago, neither one of them can give credence to the handicap of experience to win this fight either. As their domains clash, the real question would be if the both of them are unable to move. In the territory war with Dagon, it took every ounce of Fushiguro's strength and effort to hold back Dagon's sure hit effect from taking over the small patch of domain Megumi was able to muster. And without the Zenkai boost in cursed energy due to his strenuous struggle he was in with Regi's gang and even Reggie himself, himself eventually, it's doubtful he has yet reached a level we see in his original timeline fight. Higuruma, only having awoken his sorcerer powers for about a week or so now, wouldn't be much better off either. Although his main technique revolves completely around the domain, and most of his power is drawn directly from that as a base, his understanding is primitive, and this would be the first time he's ever been faced with a sorcerer capable to match him on this front. Higuruma would definitely be taken aback, but would most likely adapt quickly. Now in a completely neutral setting, resigned to just both their own combat ability, the two of them would engage in a physical fight while their cursed techniques were disabled, having to juggle cursed energy manipulation in order to properly struggle, as well as reinforce one's domain not to lose in the tug of war. Both Megumi and Higuruma would be pressing themselves to their limit in order to actually gain any ground in this fight. Megumi having access to his weapons, and Higuruma his shape-shifting gavel. As the two of them engage, Higuruma may be the one to find himself with an advantage in this situation. Although normally able to masterly integrate his hand-to-hand combat with his shadows, with all supernatural focus directed to keeping his domain in check, Megumi would only be able to rely on pure skill. And to be up against a sorcerer that was even able to put Itadori Yuji on the back foot, Higuruma would be able to find an opening on Megumi sooner than later. If any ground is lost in the territory struggle, literally any at all, Higuruma's sure hit effect has the chance to activate and instantly kill any momentum in Megumi's favor, shifting it over into Higuruma's direction. Powerless to stop the trial once it actually takes effect, both Megumi and Higuruma would be separated from their close quarters battle and return to the podiums. With Higuruma fully aware of any evidence that Megumi is placed on trial for, he almost always assumes the position of power in his domain. Although having a much more logical background than Itadori, if Fushiguro is found guilty at any point in the trial, confiscation is inevitable. And with the removal of Fushiguro's curse technique also comes the erasure of any chances he has of winning. Without the 10 shadows, Fushiguro Megumi is a grade 2 sorcerer at best. Although his hand-to-hand has grown significantly over the course of the series, his greatest asset is his ability to merge his shadows and Shikigami into his fighting style flawlessly. In his original timeline battle against Reggie Star, Megumi is able to utilize his multiple different options to take advantage of any situation he's pulled into. His technique at this point is an extension of his own self, becoming one and the same with him, much to his benefit, as the potential of the 10 shadows truly is endless when it comes to versatility. If you were to take that all off the table, Fushiguro doesn't have much left to stand up against Higuruma. Despite being a practicing lawyer, the newly awakened sorcerer was able to expertly wield his shape-shifting gavel against the close quarters master Itadori, barely leaving the battle with so much as a scratch, and finding multiple different ways to manipulate his weapon and catch Yuji off guard or keep him up against the wall. Even when it came down to the final moments of the battle between Itadori and Higuruma in the original timeline, the only reason the latter actually lost was because he himself gave up, not being able to bring himself to take an innocent man's life. Would we consider Fushiguro an innocent man? Has he really committed no crime-worthy offense? Is the allowing of Sukuna's vessel to walk amongst the living every waking day not a violation of the social contract itself? A man that saves people selfishly, deeming who is worthy simply off of his own merit and feelings. Is that someone who really deserves to make decisions for the grand at large? Unseal Satoru Gojo from Prison Realm? End the Culling game? Save your sister? Such selfish desires. Having absolutely no reason to find the same sympathy in Megumi that Higuruma finds in Yuji. Much like the other players who make up Higuruma's point count, Megumi is merely another human attempting to abuse the system that he must judge accordingly. And his Shikigami Judge Man, now the only Shikigami remaining in battle, will allow him to do just that. Even if Megumi is somehow able to discover the idea of the retrial, being returned to the podium for yet another chance, Fushiguro can potentially clear his name and return his cursed technique. Although unlikely, we cannot completely rule this out as an option. However, despite that actually being an outcome, what really comes after that? Is Higuruma not able to immediately relaunch his domain expansion and start a new trial? Would Megumi be able to find a win condition if he does get his cursed technique back? Playing devil's advocate, of course, another option would be Megumi is found guilty a second time, resulting in not only confiscation of cursed technique, but the death penalty. And with the summoning of Executioner's sword and still no 10 shadows for Megumi, it's safe to say this would be lights out for Fushiguro on this branching path. Megumi's main issue with going out this way would be his inability to use his trump card. In most what-if cases, Fushiguro always has Maharaga as a way to equalize the playing field. While it may not be a win, this does put most other players in the series in checkmate. With his curse technique fully removed, Fushiguro would be silenced by Higuruma without a trace. Now, how do you feel about this entire possibility? Let me know in the comments below. I think Higuruma is definitely a hard counter for someone like Fushiguro, whose power level relies so heavily on his curse technique. Being someone that has a solid physical presence that is able to contend with the likes of Yuji Itadori, this puts Higuruma a higher class than Megumi, at least on the physical front. And if most of the fight would be fought on neutral playing field, or Higuruma's home territory in his domain, Fushiguro would be the one lacking in my opinion. But the child has surprised me before. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like to help boost it for the algorithm. Don't forget to subscribe. It also lets me know you enjoy this content and want to see Yuji vs Reggie as a part 2. Thanks so much for watching, guys, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.